Alright. If you are using blood magic in your main attack game and then use all of your mana to use auras with, then you're left with no mana at all. And because of that you have to link your curses with blood magic as well. Elemental weakness, enfeeble, temporal chains, blood magic. Projectile weakness, enduring cry, blood magic. And if you don't do that, then you can't use your skills, but that's not really an issue. And I use all my auras. Let's put this back here. Because I don't have much space on my sockets anymore, I have to jiggle around with a few skill gems. Because I have these auras over here, and if you use reduced mana on it, and then use the aura, you can take out the reduced mana and put it back somewhere else, or even take it out completely, and then put in something else. And I'm using blood magic for the devouring totem in here. Just make sure that your auras are not on your skill bar anymore, because if you now press your aura by accident, it will be turned off, and if you press it again, it will use blood magic and reserve almost all of your life. And if you get damaged in that exact moment, you will die. I will demonstrate it over here for you guys, but I will check that there are no enemies. Alright. Actually there is one. If you make the mistake, as you can see, it's turned off, and if you turn it on, all of your life is reserved. And if you make that mistake in a dire situation, you might die instantly. And that's why I'm warning you right now. Make sure that your skill gems are in the correct sockets. Alright. Let's just wait a little bit until the mana regenerates. Alright. Turn on the aura, put the gem back in, and replace the skill with the actual skill you want to have in there. Don't have your auras on the skill bar at all. That way you can't do any mistakes. And as I told you guys, I have the devouring totem with blood magic, and the reason why I have devouring totem is in order to be able to deal with necromancers a little bit easier. That was the main reason I got devouring totem. But I realized that the devouring totem with blood magic on my main attack is actually quite insanely good. And I'm going to show you why. Let's say you are doing a map. You are running around, searching for enemies. You kill them with your attack, which now costs life. And if you kill a lot of enemies at once, your life will go down a little bit in my case, because the mana cost for the attack is quite high. My life regeneration is not quite enough to cover the mana cost of the skill, or actually life cost. And then, while you are looking at items, you can put down the devouring totem. And while you are checking the items on the ground, the devouring totem will heal you back up. Quite awesome, isn't it? And it's also a little bit of extra heal during situations where you are taking a lot of burst damage. And if you're taking quite a lot of burst damage, I'm using the instant life flask, granite flask, the usual life flask, and I'm basically unkillable right now. Even in very high level maps, I'm almost unkillable when I'm using enfeeble. I did 75 maps, and with enfeeble I'm almost unkillable right now. The only stuff that makes a lot of trouble is chaos damage, because chaos damage is quite insanely strong, and I don't have that much chaos resistance, but that's how it goes in the current meta game. Alright, that's why I'm using the devouring totem. And what else am I using over here? I'm using elemental weakness with the build now, because elemental weakness actually increases my damage by more than projectile weakness, because most of my damage is elemental damage. As you can see over here, my physical damage is very low. All of my other damage types are much higher. My cold damage is almost double the amount, my lightning damage is double the amount, and my fire damage is much more than that. And the reason for that is because I'm using hatred, which adds some of the damage of the physical damage I do as cold damage. I'm using black gleam, which converts 50% of the damage to fire, and I'm also using added fire damage, and that way almost all of my physical damage is somehow converted or added as elemental damage, and because I'm also using anger and wrath, my elemental damage is much higher than my physical damage. And that's why elemental weakness, it's much better to if you want to increase your damage. And that's basically it with the elemental weakness. And I'm also using temporal chains. If you encounter very fast moving targets, temporal chains is the best thing to do. For example, on the level 74 map, I think it's the jungle, I don't really remember, but there's Oak in there. And you know Oak on Merciless is quite insane, because he's attacking quite fast and he's using Leap Slam in order to get into your face as fast as possible. And without temporal chains, you aren't really able to do anything. With temporal chains, you can kill him rather easily. And yeah, that's basically it. I'm also using projectile weakness for enemies that don't have any resistances at all. Then I'm using projectile weakness instead, because it increases my damage by a little bit more than elemental weakness if the enemies don't have any resistances. But I might remove it later on if I get the Chaos Heart. And that's basically it with my character. Now I'm going to get to the items. The items I'm using are the perfect black gleam. 50% conversion is the best roll on the black gleam, and you want to use the perfect black gleam with this build. And I'm also using a very good helmet. It has a high life roll, a very high life roll, a very high strength roll, and 2 very high resistance rolls. And because I don't need any more resistances, I went with 20% increased rarity on the helmet. If you need something like more cold resistance or something like that, you can get that instead and replace that rarity. And my bow is nothing special really, but it's enough because I'm dealing quite a lot of damage. I don't need any damage at all. If you want to get a better bow, you can do so. This bow over here costed about 3 GCP. I think it's worth about 1 to 2 exalted, but that's not really much of an issue. Once I have Line Ice Glare, I will replace it anyways. And the ring over here is quite insane. It has double resistances, 30% lightning resistance as a base, 27% fire resistance, 50 mana, which is very important for the build, because as you can see, it is perfectly tuned. All of my mana is gone for auras. If I don't have enough mana on my gear, I can't use all auras, and that's why you want to have a little bit of mana somewhere. And I got it on this ring. And it also gives 30 dexterity and 17% increased elemental damage with weapons. Basically it's a perfect ring for my build. But I'm going to replace it with a coral ring that has lightning resistance and increased elemental damage, because I don't need the fire resistance on it anymore. I will basically not lose any damage. I might even gain damage, and I will gain about 400 more life. And this ring over here is quite insane. It has quite a high life roll, almost maximum, a lot of physical damage, dexterity that I don't really need anymore, but I needed it at that time, and 31% cold resistance. It's a quite nice ring, and as you can see, if I take a ring like this off, I lose about 400 life, and this basically means that if I get a ring like this again and replace this ring with it, I will be at about 5200 life. The amulet over here is quite nice. It grants 12 attributes. I would have liked it to have a little bit more attributes, but I didn't manage to get a Onyx amulet that has more attributes. I will replace it in the future with a better Onyx amulet, but the other rolls are quite nice. A lot of fire damage. 10 life is quite low, very low, because the maximum is about 75, I think, if I'm not mistaken. But Grinding Gear Games actually introduced a few more affixes in the last patch, or actually in the next patch they will introduce it. Level 77 to 79 item level mods, I think. It might increase the maximum life on the amulets with that patch, but right now I think it's maximum 75. And because of that, this amulet is actually quite terrible when it comes to life. But it has 30% lightning resistance, which I needed. It has a nice critical strike chance nodes, critical strike chance mod, and that's why I'm using this amulet. The 6th link is... I don't think I have to explain the 6th link. The gloves over here are quite nice, because they grant 35 intelligence, 34 dexterity, and as I said, I needed this dexterity over here for quite some time, because if you want to equip the line ice glare, you need 212 dexterity, or was it 222, something like that. And my dexterity wasn't quite enough to equip the line ice glare. And because of that, I already aimed for an item that has a little bit of dexterity on it. And at the time, I got this ring over here, and it would put me at 230 or something like that. And then I got this glove over here, and basically I can replace all of these rings for better rings. And this glove over here, I don't think I will replace it, because it grants mana, a lot of mana, which I needed for my auras. 71 maximum life, which is quite high. 35 intelligence, which means I can level brass a little bit more. What else does it have? 34 dexterity, which means I can replace the rings. 3 to 7 physical damage, and also 9% attack speed. Basically, this glove over here is quite insane. This belt over here is also quite insane. It has very much life, a very high maximum life roll, maximum implicit life roll, and a very high strength roll, which also grants life. And then it has increased flask charges gained, which is awesome, and increased flask life recovery rate, which is also nice, and 25% increased block and stun recovery, which is also nice. And then I exalted the belt, and it got reflect 7 physical damage. Awesome, right? Whatever, the belt is awesome anyways. And my boots are awesome also, because this is the only item that I'm wearing that has chaos resistance on it. And it has triple resistance, a lot of life, and that's basically already makes the boots quite awesome. I could have a little bit better boots, but I didn't find any yet. But these are basically the boots or the amulet are the worst part of my gear right now, but also very replaceable if I find something better. And basically, my character is quite awesome. I'm going to show you the skill build now. I changed a few things. I took out these reduced mana cost nodes, as I told you, once I went from 5 link to 6 link. And instead of using these, I went this way to get reduced mana reservation in order to be able to use all the auras. And now I'm able to barely run them, but I can run them, which means I managed to do what I wanted to do. And I'm free to skill more life. I can get even more life over here. Or I can get to iron reflexes in 3 points. Because if I'm using line ice glare can have about 100 mana on it. Which means I could run one more aura, which will probably be Grace. And if I run Grace, I can use Iron Reflexes to get even more armor. But I'm going to wait on that until I have the line ice glare. I don't want to theory craft too much without having the mana first. And basically I could get a little bit more armor to increase my armor, or a little bit more life, or even more damage. Doesn't really matter. My character became quite awesome, I must say. And one more thing, these 2 nodes over here, as I said, I took out the reduced mana costs to get over here 2 points, and I was missing 2 points. You can take them out from somewhere else in order to support your 5 link, because even if you reduce your damage by taking out 2 damage nodes, you will increase your damage by a lot by going from 4 link to 5 link anyways. Which means that it is worth putting in a few points to support the 5 link. And that's what I did. I took out a few points somewhere else and put them in here. And now that I'm at 6 link, I took out these 2 points and also these 2 points. Because I don't need diamond skin anymore, because I can run purity. And basically I saved 4 points, these 2 points and these 2 points, and then I put them in here 4 points to use the auras with. Basically I didn't lose any points at all, and just made my character better. And that's basically it, guys. My character is very scalable and can become quite strong, and I think he is in the top 5 of the best builds in the game right now. But I might be a little bit off, because some people are creating very strong builds right now, but this character is very strong, and I can only advise you to try him out, because he's quite awesome. And see you guys next time.